Welcome to this hybrid meeting. Welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Family Education and Justice Committee for March 25. I would remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I've agreed the attendance of some members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphones when not speaking. For any members of the public watching, please note that all the public committee reports, including details of specific recommendations, are available on the Council's website. So we start with apologies and substitutes. Laura?
Thank you, Convener. Apologies from Councillor Whiteside, with Councillor Praise substituting.
Do we have any declarations of interest or statements of transparency? That's grand. Minute of previous meeting. Be quite happy to agree that. Yes. Thank you very much. So we can move on to the good part of the afternoon, where we've got a presentation by Forfar Academy. This is a project-based learning and called Powering Forfar Through Renewable Energy. Leila and Zoya are here. Leila is going to start off. These are S2 pupils, and they're going to give this presentation now. And of course, we'll be able to ask questions afterwards. Thank you.
Hello everybody, we are S2 pupils from Forfar Academy, and we've been doing a science project from the past 6 weeks that we spent. As she said, it's a project-based learning that we've been doing, and we've really enjoyed it, and we're really thankful to be here today. We've got our school to thank for that. We've been given a driving question, which was, how can we as engineers and consultants plan for future replacements for fossil fuels in our own community? And so I will tell you more about that.
Yeah, so this project took about 6 weeks. We started off finding out what is climate change and what are fossil fuels and how climate change is changing our planet. We had a few need to knows, like how much energy does Forfar produce, and what type of renewable energies should we use.
We took a lead in all of our learning. We found this out on the internet, and then we would write it down, and we spoke to our teachers. Our teachers kept in touch with us to make sure we were on the right track, so you couldn't just skive off of it and not do any work. So we definitely had somebody observing us, but it was by ourselves, and we were responsible for our learning.
Yeah, we had to do all the calculations by ourselves. So we had to find out how much energy does Forfar produce, about yearly, and then we had to figure out how would we make that energy, and where would we put what type of energy were we going to use.
So we had our group, and what we decided was we were going to put our wind turbines. We had wind turbines. We were going to put them around farms, around the sides, so we can ensure food security. And it was quite outside of Forfar, so it wasn't really bothering anybody in the town. And then we had wires to connect it to a big battery storage full of lead-acid batteries. We had problems with this that we faced, but we did find solutions. That was part of our task. We had problems one of the problems we run into is, what if there's no wind? Well, that's where our storing our energy came in, and we would keep it for a week. But if there was too much, if we had loads of wind that week and there's too much, we would sell it to the Scottish Energy Grid to get money back for it. And then with our lead-acid batteries, they could be dangerous if they weren't disposed of correctly. So that just opens up jobs. Instead of looking at that as a problem, we looked at it as more of a solution, or a new kind of way to look at things, which was we can open good jobs for people to take care of these lead-acid batteries. So it was really good to find problems and make our own. And then there was another group as well, the boys who are going to be here today. They decided to put them on the shores and stuff where you could get lots of wind. So everybody sort of took a different take on it, and that's what made it quite good, that we weren't all just sitting copying the exact same thing. We all had our own ideas. It was quite a creative task, which is something that I really enjoyed about it.
Yeah, it was another challenge we had was so if we would take it further, we would have added thought about cars and like how that would like impact the climate change, and what else was it?
We could add more, we could use more energy in different places, because this was how much energy Forfar used as in households, so we could expand and look on everywhere else in Forfar other buildings used and stuff, and then we would look more on our battery storage, because that was a rough idea at the end, but I think it was still one of the main parts of our project. But if we were to expand on this and continue on, then we would keep looking at it. And then right at the end of this project, we met, both classes came together in one big science room, and we spoke to people who have careers in this kind of subject. So we had people from BLC Energy, Murden Energy, and Solar 2. They were really lovely people who sat down. They let us chat their ear off about our project, and they gave us really mature feedback, which was so lovely to hear. Like, we got good feedback for what we were doing, and we felt like we'd done enough. So we had some people speaking about us, about our decisions and how they would have changed that since they work in this, and they've got people always badgering them about what they're doing.
They weren't like they didn't hold back on criticism either, so that was really good for us, like, to take that in and like work on that.
Yeah,
further.
sometimes teachers can be a little soft, but they spoke to us, but they were also they were also giving us good advice, so it wasn't just pure grilling us. They were like, oh, you can improve on this, but you've also done really well on these kind of things, and they were really impressed. The learning was relevant, it was very engaging. I felt like we had something to work towards near the end, and getting to see these people was quite impressive for us, because that's not something you would do in school. And we had some of our higher members of staff, like we had Mr. Mohammed, our head teacher, and Miss McGuinness and stuff.
It just felt like, you know, an opportunity for us.
But thank you so much for listening, guys. Do you
Yeah.
have any questions? Do you want to come and see anything? We've got quite a few little posters and stuff about our project, because we put a lot of work into this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I'm sure people will have questions. That was a great presentation with humour as well. We enjoyed that. Okay, do we have any questions? Councillor Clark and then Councillor Bell.
Right, ladies, I'm going to come forward a wee bit because I'm just a wee thing. But, you know, I can't help but notice, right as the convener says, the humour and the interaction is amazing. And that's what you really need for anything. But my question would be, initially, I will comment later on, that's when I'll say what I want to say. But my question really would be, and I always try and put a wee bit of humour in as well. I think you would be capable of being, I'm sitting beside an oil man as well as being a politician here, and quite a senior man at that. And my question would be that, so which are you going for, the oil industry offshore, or is it going to be politics? Because with your brain and delivery and humour, as well as so many other things, you could do well in any of them.
Thank you, that's really kind. I never really liked physics before, but see, doing this project, it really made me look at different careers and stuff. So I would consider this and think about physics more, because I would never really enjoyed it. I was always a big, oh, I don't like physics. But I think this has really opened my eyes to see that there's different kinds and there's different ways of learning. I think we need to continue that, because if we've enjoyed it, then I'm sure lots of other children will enjoy doing this kind of thing as well.
Personally, I've always liked physics, like, from the start. I have looked at, like, going into politics afterwards, yeah. Yeah, like, to do with physics, maybe, or to do with law, yeah.
Well done, ladies, thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. My turn. Well, I'm actually really pleased to hear that you're so enthused about physics, because I think we really need to see more women in STEM subjects. So this is an area that I kind of support, and I'm really excited to hear that. As a former journalist, I think journalism is also a career opportunity, because we need bright, inquiring minds in that as well. But my question, because I was in communications, I was really interested in if you had any consideration of a communications plan when you were drawing up your project, because one of the challenges that we have is, I guess, a lack of understanding by the general public about how big an issue the climate emergency is. And doing as much as we can to deliver renewable energy, I think is really important. So I just wondered if you'd paid any thought to challenging some of those attitudes in communications. Thank you, and you were amazing.
No, I totally agree. I think some people can be a bit blinded by, climate change. Some people are just like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, and they don't understand the big impact it has. But we did a lot of looking on it, and some of the questions were sort of similar, like, oh, if you're putting wind turbines up, some people might not like looking at that. Well, you might not also like looking at your world like crumbling because you're absolutely ruining it and polluting it. So I think sometimes there can be a bit of ignorance to this sort of thing. And for the communications, we didn't really look at that side of things, but I'm sure if I did, then I would sort it out with like engineers and stuff and the consultants. We would sort it out, and then once we made a firm decision, then you would bring it out to the public with advertisements and letting people know, however you do that, letting people know in the town that that's what you were going to do.
Yeah, I think it would be like really important for the telling the public why we're doing this, try to educate them too.
As I say, this was like solo learning, so we didn't go too deep into communications and prices. We tried to have a little look at it, because obviously that's going to be one of your biggest things, how much does it cost? But we were told we were unlimited money and just to look strictly on this. But thank you for your question.
Thank you for your answer, a really important one. Councillor Proctor.
Thanks very much, Convener. Thank you, girls. That's a brilliant, spontaneous presentation, really interesting, and I'm glad that you enjoyed getting involved in it so much, and your fellow pupils at the school. I think you've really taken this on board. Climate change is not tomorrow, it's happening now, and you really realise that. One of the things you mentioned was about lead battery storage. So have you got any idea what you would think on the life and how you would actually control the storage of these batteries, which might well be essential to what you're trying to achieve?
To be honest, the battery storage was like a last minute thing, so we didn't have enough time to look at it. But I think if we did take it further, we would definitely look at it and check if there's any other batteries storages that are better. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. We've had a lot of questions on our battery storage, and quite a lot of other people's have done battery storage. I'm not really too sure about how batteries work, but as I said, if it fills up too much with the energy we have, we're saying if we were the week of wind and it's put into the batteries and the batteries are full, and you're saying how do you get more of that storage in, that's when we would sell it to the grid. And then to have these jobs opening for people to look into the batteries, and then that would be also some communication between those people and then the people sending it to the grid. We'd have a lot of jobs opened up in that, so there would be people monitoring them and making sure that it's fully up to speed and stuff.
Okay, thank you very much for that good answer. And of course, one of the things you might actually consider as well is maybe devising or inventing a new type of battery which is not going to be detrimental to the environment. But thank you very much. I'm sure you'll do well whatever you choose to do when you leave school.
Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you very much for your presentation. As a Forfar councillor, I'm intrigued to look at a bit more of your work that you've done specifically within here in Forfar. I'm not sure whether you're aware or not, but we as a local authority, Angus Council, we're looking at ways as how we can reduce our carbon footprint. So, off the work that you've done and then all the investigatory work and things that you've done and discussions you've had, have you got any suggestions for us as a local authority that perhaps either you could pass on to our Chief Executive or we could ask the Convener to pass on your behalf as to how we as Angus Council could try and reduce our carbon footprint and do a bit better that way?
Well, that's a big ask. What a question. For carbon footprint, I mean, I've always had a personal thing where I've thought about packaging and stuff, and I understand that's not you guys, that's like companies and stuff, but you could be open to more like not protests, but sort of get-togethers about like climate change, and you guys are speaking about carbon footprint, so you're already a step ahead if you're speaking about it and already getting your ideas together, because lots of minds are better than one, if you know what I mean. So if you're speaking about it, then that's already a step ahead, and then speaking is always good. And then you can just look at things in Forfar. Like, we get fines on like dog poo bags and stuff, but I still see them everywhere. And I'm not sure what goes on behind the scenes, but do people actually get those fines? And how do you know who dropped the bag? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like there's plastic being
Maybe
littered.
more bins, to be honest.
Yeah, more bins.
Yeah.
Invent a new bin that doesn't topple over in the wind, maybe.
Yeah.
Or get burned.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much, girls. Neil Loudon's got a question for you.
Not normally permitted questions. Thank you, Convener. So interested, Leila Zola, in that presentation. I just wanted to touch on one thing. You spoke something at the beginning about project-based learning. Is that what this is? Is that what the project was? Could you tell us a wee bit about project-based learning and what that means?
So basically, the project-based learning is when you get like a driving question and you're put into groups instead of like working with a partner or by yourself. So you work in groups and you have to figure out a solution for the driving question or problem.
Yeah, we started with our need to knows, and we have an end goal that we're working towards. Instead of it just being normal lessons where you're sitting one day, let's say we're doing biology, and you're looking at blood and then muscles and then the brain works and stuff.
This is like long-lasting, I guess.
And then we had that solo learning as well, where we took it into our own hands to learn about this, to then speak to these people, because it would be a bit embarrassing to sit there and not have anything to say. So this project-based learning was seeing your end goal and knowing you had something to work to, working in your groups of 4 and like having 4s or 5s or however many, and all working together in that teamwork, and somebody could take leadership of things. So in our group we had some people speak about climate change, some battery storage, and we had our presentation. So it was very good to have that group work, and everyone had something to do. We have post-it notes with everybody's names. We had a little group name. It was the Gingerbread Women in the Milky Way was our group name. Yeah. Very well coloured in. So project-based learning has been, honestly, one of my favourite ways of learning so far.
Definitely, yeah.
When I met you at school, you said one of the great things was you could put all your ideas into the pot and stir it around and come out with the best solutions. And that just sounds like what employers are looking for, actually. So, did you want to say something else? Oh, right, okay. Right, that's Councillor Speed there.
Hi there, thank you very much. That was a really fascinating presentation, and you've clearly put a lot of work into this project. I just wondered if you could, what would be your perhaps message for people within Angus, that, you know, what you've talked about is kind of some of the, you know, possible advances in terms of energy and renewables, and, you know, but for someone who maybe doesn't have access or the means to, you know, purchase some of those kind of more advanced technologies, what would be your kind of message, just everyday steps that we can all do to really start to tackle climate change?
Well, there's little things you can do. Like, let's say my family, instead of buying all these little packets of crisps in the shop that are in a big plastic bag, buy the big bag and put them into tubs that you keep. Have like clips for your bags instead of putting them in little plastic bags, because all this plastic and all this pollution is a big part of climate change.
And then like throw stuff into bins too, like remember, like recycle, like store the litter into like different bins, yeah.
Yeah. I would probably just say to the people like looking at climate change and looking at this renewable stuff to keep searching, to keep trying to invent, to keep pressuring these people who are saying, oh no, we don't need to do it. They need to keep pressuring and keep looking and keep advancing our technology so that we can make our world safe and good for the climate.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much, girls. I don't think there's any other questions. No. Oh, sorry. Councillor Brace first.
Well, it's a comment if you're ready for comments.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thanks, Convener. And thank you, girls, for a wonderful presentation. very articulate, very knowledgeable, and a world of opportunity awaits you, and grab it with both hands, whatever you decide to do after school. The climate change and the drive for renewables. Well, we have to really drive for renewables, and so glad to see that you're playing a part in it. Because if we don't drive towards renewables, well, by the time you're my age, there won't be any fossil fuel left to burn, whether you would want to or not. So this is something we have to do. The other comment I would make is that, the other comment I would make is that there's so much change going on now, and things are developing so quickly. And I think it would be a good idea to keep hold of that project, because in 10 years' time, if you go and read it again, it's going to look so old-fashioned and so out of date. And that's one of the very exciting things about being where you are in your life just now. Thank you.
I've got several people now. You've spurred them on here. Councillor Doran.
Thank you. So, yeah, mine's a comment. And sorry if there is any background noise going on, because I wanted to just speak to you and say how great your presentation was and how excited I am to see this method of learning and coming together and how that's developed your passion for STEM. I've actually stepped out of a meeting of scientists from around the UK. I'm in London at the minute, where they're coming together with people from industry and how to connect with public audiences to tackle societal problems. So I just wanted to mention that, because it just shows that the way that you're doing your learning, how you've applied yourself and how you're running this project is exactly how it works in real life. Solutions aren't made in isolation, they're made by bringing together different groups of people, and it's so great to see that being done in practice in Angus. So, and what a brilliant presentation, massively enjoyed that. So thank you both.
Thanks, Councillor Doran. Councillor Gavin Nicholl.
Thank you, Convener. Girls, I liked your presentation, and I would like to say it was one of the best and most sensible I've heard in the chambers for years. Thank you.
And Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Convener. Just wanted to say, girls, that was an amazing presentation that has clearly had a huge amount of thought about it. So well done. You've done amazingly well. And just to touch on when you mentioned food security, in Scotland, we waste 1 million tonnes of food every year. It's over £1 billion. So we all have a responsibility. So you're absolutely right in your presentation. Every single one of us can make a small change that has a huge impact. But well done. That was excellent.
Thank you, Councillor Gall. It's certainly multifaceted, this whole area, isn't it? Right, so listen, I'm going to bring this to an end at the moment. Thank you very much, girls, and you can leave because I'm sure you don't want to listen to the whole agenda. But thanks again. Bye-bye. Right, we're going to move on. Neil was just saying goodbye to the girls there, so he's on next with the Angus School Inspection Report of Montrose Academy, and we've got Malcolm Smart here, the head teacher. So you're very welcome, Malcolm, and you'll be getting a few questions, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Difficult to follow, Leila and Zola, certainly. But agenda item 5, asks members to consider the inspection report for Montrose Academy, published by His Majesty's Inspectorate for Education in February of this year. The committee report lists both the strengths and the areas for development identified by the inspection team. The Directorate notes the evaluations listed in Appendix 1 and central officers continue to support school leaders with this important school improvement agenda. Further actions were planned following the inspection visit in response to the recommendations in the report. I would also ask members to note that parents have attended a public meeting led by Mr Smart, the head teacher, to discuss plans for improvement and the progress that the school has already started to make. Mr Smart has joined me in the chamber today, as the convener said, and he'll be happy to take any questions. Lorraine Will, service leader, is also here. Lorraine has been supporting Malcolm and the SLT with that improvement agenda. Finally, convener, the report also requests members to agree that the further inspection report be brought back to this committee in line with the what happens next section of the report. Thank you, convener.
Thank you. And can I ask her any questions? Councillor Melville first.
Thank you, convener, and thank you, Mr Smart, for coming along. Following the inspection, how are you looking to engage with parents and the wider community to sort of strengthen partnerships with them?
Thank you, Councillor. As Neil mentioned, we had a parents' information evening a couple of days after the report came out. That was reasonably well attended by parents and carers, and we went through at that stage the progress that we'd made since the inspection in November, and we outlined our plans, plans for improvement at that meeting. We also collected a number of questions that parents had about what was said at the meeting. I then met with the parent partnership, which was called MAP, and I went through any points that had come up at that meeting and went through some of the answers to the questions. I plan, and I've said to parents that I will be putting out a written response to all of their questions soon, hopefully before the Easter break. At that parent partnership meeting, we talked about things that could be done quickly in terms of engaging parents more. We've planned 2 family learning events for one before the Easter break and one for after. And we have also listened to parents and carers in terms of the type of communication that they would find useful in terms of engaging themselves more in their young people's learning.
Supplementary, convener, if that's all right. I think one of the points that I made was about engaging with the wider community, and one area which I think is really important is making sure that young people have a wide range of learning opportunities, not just in the classroom. So what work are you doing to engage with, for instance, local businesses? I mean, you've got GSK on your doorstep to open doors of opportunity to young people for that kind of learning experience.
Thank you, Councillor. Are you asking particularly about GSK or about other businesses?
Well, GSK, Montrose Port. I mean, Montrose has got a wide range of businesses on offer that young people can get those opportunities in.
Okay, we do engage with GSK at the moment. Last year I had a site visit with Graham Colley, who's a teacher of technology. We met Mel Robertson to talk about different ways in which we could work with our junior pupils. We already have young people from the school who go to GSK to do work experience. And one of our science teachers, Daniel Stewart, works with GSK in terms of leading an industrial cadet programme, which has been very successful. We also have a really good working relationship with Baker Hughes, where we have pupils who go along there twice a year to do work experience placements, and they're also involved in the AIMS project, which is Angus Improves through mentoring. And Baker Hughes have allowed 8 members of staff out of school, and that number is growing, to come along and mentor young people who are perhaps not achieving as much as they ought to be achieving at the moment, and it's getting that additional input from people who are outside education that young people can build a relationship with. We've got good working relationships with Montrose Playhouse and a number of other local businesses like Murray, Taylor, local accountants, etc.
Just as a final supplementary, convener, I know I'm pushing my luck.
Really are.
In terms, that's really encouraging in terms of that kind of wide variety. How do you measure the value of that? Are you seeing that as something that is going to be taking up more time as part of the school day? And how much value is that giving to your young people?
I think one thing that was very encouraging from the report was the recognition of the wider achievement of our young people, and that falls within achievement. Our next stage in terms of measuring the impact of achievement is to identify the skills that are involved and that young people are acquiring and developing through engagement with local businesses and other bodies which offer non-mainstream educational experiences. So our target between now and the return of the inspectors is to make sure that we have a framework in place where we're able to identify the skills that are being developed, identify a baseline and hopefully measure any improvements as a result of the engagement with the local business or enterprise that they've been working with.
Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Mr Smart, for coming along today. It's really appreciated. Can I ask you what you have done to ensure that staff have a clear understanding of what the national standards are? And also, I note within the report that the relationships between the staff and the young people appear to be quite strong, which results in a supportive and caring ethos. Can you tell me, has that been delivered through your work with vision, values and aims for within the schools as well, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. In terms of the first question that you asked about national standards, what we have done, and we started this before the inspectors came in, was we were looking at our S1 to S3 courses to make sure that the learning that we are planning and delivering is fit for purpose and it prepares young people well for entry into S4 to S6. In order to make that meaningful, we do need to know what the standards are in terms of what a level 3 piece of work is, for example, what a level 4 piece of work is. As all Angus secondary schools are experiencing, we are getting pupils coming through the primary cluster system with a growing range of needs. So we're no longer just talking about pupils with third level and fourth level learning abilities, but early level, first level, second level. So we have invested in resources to make sure that staff in the school have the opportunity to become acquainted with what a piece of work delivered at first and second level looks like, because in every classroom in Montrose Academy we are expected to provide suitable work for young people, no matter their starting point. So we use Education Scotland guidelines in terms of the content and the skills that we are meant to be delivering. We are using Education Scotland guidelines in terms of assessment and how we go about doing that. We are working with local authority partners, other secondary schools, in terms of moderating. And by moderating, I mean that we have a common understanding about what third level work means and what fourth level work means. Apology if this is gobbledygook for you, but we talk about third and fourth level work. Third level for S1 and S2 pupils mainly, fourth level for S3 pupils. So we work with our schools to make sure that we have a shared understanding. We are also working with our primary schools to make sure that we have a good understanding of second level, particularly in literacy. We have maths teachers who are going out into our cluster primary schools to joint plan and joint deliver level 2 and level 3 work. So we are building up that knowledge and that confidence, which means that when we say that we are going to be delivering a third level piece of work, that we are confident that we are delivering that piece of work. So I would say that there's quite a lot of work that has gone into that. In terms of the relationships, I think that something that people comment upon when they come into Montrose Academy is how kind young people are. And they will hold doors open for them. They will say hello to them. They will help them if they are lost. A lot of that does come down to the relationships that staff really try to engender with young people in the school. We try to model the behaviours that we expect young people to demonstrate when they're in the school, and much of that is based on the vision and the values that you were talking about there, Councillor Gregg. We have 4 values. 2 of them are kindness and respect. The third one is about safety, trying to make sure that we know where young people are all the time, that they are making sure that they're not putting themselves or others at harm. but our fourth value is about ambition. And if we're going to raise attainment as the inspectors, and everybody recognises we must, then we need to really build upon ambition amongst parents, amongst young people and amongst staff to make sure that young people are pushed towards achieving their potential rather than just settling for second best.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Clark next.
Thank you, Convener, and hello, Mr Smart, again. And just touching on just your last few words there, which is the worst thing we always think, isn't it, the race to the bottom. So we're rising up, and you have my best wishes for that, because this is so important. And so that brings me to my question. I do have one, Chair. What is the strategy and plan that you would have for raising attainment in all subject areas, but particularly for me in numeracy? Because that's strewn all over everything. You have to be able to count. And this was singled out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. We have adopted a more rigorous approach towards tracking and monitoring. Tracking and monitoring is when we endeavour to keep a very close eye on the progress that individual pupils are making as they move from S1 through to S6, but also at different stages in the year. So, for example, S4 pupils, for the main part, are working towards national qualifications. We have a calendar where we look at the progress that individual pupils are making at different stages throughout the year. So we are looking to improve tracking and monitoring. In terms of numeracy, we knew in August that this was something that we had to pay attention to. We didn't need to wait for the inspectors to come in to tell us that we needed to make really quite sudden changes to our approach to pupils achieving numeracy qualifications. Back in August, we identified young people who we believe had underachieved or who had not achieved at all in terms of numeracy. We were able to target these pupils from August to make sure that the delivery that we provided to young people gave them the opportunity to achieve passes in numeracy. We met with the principal teacher of maths and we set targets. And we are delighted that we have already overcome the target for pupils to achieve the level 5 numeracy qualification, and we are hoping that we will exceed that target and get closer to our virtual comparator, which is the school that we compare against ourselves against. We have made the most of this more rigorous approach to make sure that more young people are going to achieve National 4 and National 3. Now, we're not going to solve the issue of weaker attainment in numeracy in 1 year, but the work that we have done this year has shown that we are going to make a considerable improvement upon last year's progress, or last year's attainment, and the work that we are doing in improving the experience from S1 to S3 will also provide opportunities for young people to achieve better. In terms of subjects across the curriculum, what we have done is we have kept a very close eye on the percentage of young people who are getting the opportunity to do the National 5 or higher exams, because if we deny them the opportunity, they have no chance of achieving a pass. If we give them the opportunity, we give them a chance. Okay, now some may not achieve that, but at least they cannot say that they have been denied the chance. So we know, for example, in English this year, and this was a concern raised by Neil Loudon back in October, we have a higher percentage of young people who are going to be presented for National 5 English than have been in previous years. We're not going to be able to do that in maths this year, but the aim is that we will be able to make progress with that. And we've gone through every subject to make sure that the percentage of young people who are being given the opportunity to do the exam at the end of the year is as close to the national average as we can possibly get. Because Montrose is a school which compares itself well against the national average. You know, we're neither miles above nor miles below the national average. The other thing I would say is that while we are giving young people the chance to do this final exam, we are aware that some young people won't achieve that. So we are working hard to make sure that if they don't get the National 5, they get the level below that, so that everybody is leaving each subject area with a course award qualification. That's our aim. No school can do that 100% of the time, but we are working as hard as we can to make sure that all young people will leave with a course award.
Thank you, very candid and thorough just answer. It wasn't just an answer, it was a piece of work. Thank you so much.
That's okay.
I have 4 more questions, and I think I'm going to stop it at that. I hope they're quite short. Councillor Gaw.
Thank you, Convener. Just for context, I'm referencing the additional inspection evidence. So question 4, 13% of respondents disagree or strongly disagree that they feel safe at school. And question 29, 31% of respondents disagree or strongly disagree that my school deals with bullying well. After speaking with a fellow ward councillor, it's been brought to my attention there is an issue with bullying at Montrose Academy that's been for some time. I would just like to know, obviously, because that's such a horrendous thing and it puts a huge impact on the ability to learn, what steps are being taken to try and reduce that as much as possible.
Sorry, I switched off. Sorry, Councillor Gaw, didn't do that intentionally. In terms of pupil safety, my understanding is that this is based around toilets. That's most of the information. And so in terms of the pupils going to the toilet and feeling unsafe going to the toilet, we have taken very definite steps to try and address that. So toilets at morning interval and at lunchtime are now supervised by members of the senior leadership team, and we are keeping a closer eye on what happens with the toilets. In terms of bullying, we have conducted pupil focus groups about safety, and bullying has been given, has come through as a concern. Work has been done to review the school's anti-bullying policy. That is based on the Respect Me agenda. It has been consulted with parents. There have been focus groups working with young people and with staff about the anti-bullying policy, and we hope to be able to launch that soon. What young people say that they want in terms of bullying is that they want it to be tackled and they want it to be solved. And, as I say to parents and carers, all we can do is speak to the young people who are involved in displaying the bullying behaviour, and we will continue to chip away and we will continue to support young people to make sure that they no longer display that behaviour. It's hard to tell whether that has been successful until we give that policy the chance to embed, but we are becoming better at recording bullying incidents officially, and part of that bullying incident forum is to make sure that you go back to the young person to check that the incident has been resolved, and that's what we are doing at the moment.
And Neil Loudon would just like to come in at this point.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. Councillor Gaw, you raise a very important point in terms of bullying across all of our schools, but particularly our secondary schools. And to that effect, we are going to have Respect Me in our next Head Teacher Development Day to work with all head teachers. So I'm just citing members that our numbers may increase because our recording is going to become more robust, because I think that's really important for young people to know that their voices are being heard and that action is being taken. So, Councillor Gaw, thank you for raising that, because in terms of Montrose, that was... The toilets is important context, Malcolm, you're right, because I know you've done a lot of work on that, but in terms of wider Angus approaches, we are going to be working with Respect Me directly across all of our schools to make sure that our measures and our impact is robust around bullying.
Oh.
Is that okay?
Kelly McIntosh now.
Sorry, Councillor Gord, just in relation to the toilets, you may remember from the budget papers that we had a small amount in the capital plan for upgrades to our older schools which have toilets that are only single-sex toilets, and Montrose is actually next on the list. And I've been chatting with Beth. Beth's up there somewhere remotely. She has seen the plan, so it's quite well advanced. And I think the information we have from other schools is as soon as we have these toilets that are open to the outside, the bullying is much less. So Montrose doesn't have a facility like that at the moment, so hopefully that will help.
Great. That's okay, Councillor Gall? Good. Councillor Braze, then Bell, then Wan.
Yes, thanks, convener. I think Mr. Smart has probably answered in great part the question I have, but I'll ask it anyway in case he wishes to expand. How do you identify young people at risk of underachievement, and what approaches are you taking to support them? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Braze. I'm really proud that staff in Montrose Academy know their young people really well. And that starts not from the start of S1, but from the contact we have young people in their primary schools. So we have a good understanding about young people when they move up, thanks to the information that is provided by primary schools. And we use that data to identify, or at an early stage, young people who are likely to perhaps not attend as much as we would like, or not attain as well as we would like. We have our young people who we know are care experienced. We have young people who have additional support needs. I've already referred to young people coming up with a broader range of needs than at any time in the past, and how we are trying to do our best to support young people to achieve the best that they can. We have young people who live in areas of comparative deprivation. We have young people who don't attend mainstream classes. Now, within those, that provides us a lot of different target groups that we have to support. Throughout their time in Montrose Academy, we track and monitor their attainment and their attendance. And towards the end of S2, we are able to identify young people who we believe are at risk of not achieving the best that they possibly can. So I've already mentioned Baker Hughes and their involvement in the AIMS initiative, but we have other mentoring schemes within the school. But one thing that was recognised by the inspectors during their visit in November was our use of the Inclusion Hub to target young people who we know are very likely to leave school without 5 basic qualifications at level 3 unless we intervene. So we select these young people based on our knowledge of the young person, mainly their attainment and their attendance history, and we make provisions for these young people to attend this inclusion hub, as we call it, to make sure that they work towards and attain the 5 level 3 qualifications. This year we have done that, and we believe that pupils who we thought might be at risk of not achieving 5 at 3, some of these will achieve 5 at level 4. So we know that through early intervention and through being able to identify and support these young people, they will not only achieve what we hope, but they will surpass, any expectations that we have, which is really good.
Thank you very much for that quite comprehensive answer.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, convener, and thank you, Mr. Smart. I really appreciate your very open and honest answers. It's been really helpful. I think the hopes and aspirations of young people are really prominent in the media just now, particularly on the back of a very harrowing drama that has aired recently. And I was really interested to pick up on the family learning events you were talking about. And that's very much, for me, a part of it takes a whole village to raise a child. I wondered if you could tell us a bit more about what these events entail, and if families, specific families, are needing any additional support, what referral pathways you might have at your disposal. Thank you.
The two events that we have coming up are based around learning and teaching. So the first one is about supporting young people to prepare as well as they can for forthcoming exams. We're targeting senior phase pupils, but it's to looking at ICT platforms. It is looking at retrieval practice, which is digging deep into your brain to find stuff that you might have learned 18 months ago and bringing it to the forefront. It's based on note-taking, and it's also based on just planning. Further to that, our teacher of film and media is inviting in parents and young people to come in to talk about how they approach the film and media course. So both of those are invited. We're inviting parents and young people to come in together. When you're referring to the drama that's in the news at the moment, we are aware of a high level of need, as are all head teachers, to support young people with pastoral events. So in the secondary sector a while ago, we had the Jessie Nelson documentary around anorexia. Now, we had planned at the time that we would be doing family learning because that was something that was of particular concern to parents and carers at that time. That didn't go ahead for reasons which I don't want to go into at the moment, but the adolescence reference that you are making around misogyny and the impact of social media, we work very closely with parents and carers on supporting them through some of the tunnels that social media can get young people into. And we have had a speaker in a while ago to speak to S3 boys. He rejects the phrase toxic masculinity, but essentially he was there to speak about toxic masculinity, in my opinion. But you know, getting people like that in is really important. I think that's the type of support that as a school, possibly as a local authority, possibly as a nation, we need to work with parents more closely on, because I think that people, you know, parents obviously want the best for their young people, but I think sometimes they lack the strategies to tackle some of the things that their young people are experiencing, and understandably so. So we are aware of that, and we hope that once we have got the learning and teaching experience out of the way, that we will be able to move towards supporting parenting.
And lastly, Councillor Wan.
Thank you, Convener. And it's a question for Mr. Smart again. Well, it might be one of the officers as well, but I really want to get down to the nuts and bolts of this. How did it get to this stage? You know, the audit took place in November 24. When was the previous audit? I can't seem to recall that. I've got to be honest, I didn't do my homework and actually look back to see when the last audit was, if it was any other reports in the last 7 years. But are you convinced, and I can see that the support you're getting from Angus Council and the support you'll get from us councillors as well, I think will go a long way. But are you convinced that what's actually about to take place is going to change this? And can I ask also, in your opinion, do you feel that this will happen quite quickly?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Wan. In terms of the last time that we had an inspector's report, that predated my appointment, but I know that it was probably, I think it was 2010, the last time that the inspectors were in, and then with return visits, they finished around about 2014, was my understanding, round about then. In terms of whether we are going to turn things around quickly, it's been, you know, I've heard the analogy that we are trying to turn around a tanker, and I'd said earlier on that we're not going to solve all of the difficulties at the moment. What we need to do is we need to identify areas where we know that we can evidence success, because if we're able to do that, it gives people the feeling that their efforts are bearing fruit, and that can be encouraging, you know, to kind of look at different things and make further improvements. We have carefully chosen areas that we want to target for improvement. Now, to an extent, these were driven by the recommendations in the inspection report, but we have broken those down into separate questions that we want to answer, and we believe that if we answer those questions, then we will be able to see evidence of improvement. I don't think that it is possible to turn around, something in 1 year, but I would hope that with the moves that or the changes that we are making in the junior school and our more rigorous approach to tracking and monitoring in the senior school, that we'll certainly see green shoots soon, but we are not going to see wholesale improvements realistically within the next year or two.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Lorraine Will would like to come in just now.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Wan. And I just wanted to add to what Mr. Smart has said today, because I have been working closely with the school just prior to the inspection, went through the inspection process with them and continue to work in the school weekly alongside other council officers to make sure that the school staff are getting all of the support that they need to make the improvements that everybody wants to see. And I would have to emphasise the commitment that has been shown by Mr. Smart and his leadership team, as well as all of the staff in the school. They've made significant progress in tracking children's progress. They have made significant progress in being relentless in terms of making sure that extra support is going in where we can see that young people are not on track to achieve or not quite there yet. And there is a real commitment across the whole school community to pull together to try and make this work. And certainly from a council perspective, I will continue to be visiting the school regularly to make sure that the action plan that we've created is very closely linked to the improvement areas identified in the inspection report continues to meet the measures that we expect to see. So it's really encouraging progress that we would continue, which we expect to continue to progress. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine. Just a quick supplementary, if you don't mind, Lynn, convener, if that's okay. It's just really, I'm just really trying to tease out when did we think this all started to go downhill, though, at Montrose Academy? It's not obviously just over the November period of the audit. Have we seen things progressively going downhill, or has things always been reasonably okay and it's just been a blip at the time of the audit? Or?
Okay. So I would say that since the pandemic, we have identified that young people are coming into school with different needs and with different experiences. And I think that that is probably common across all schools in Scotland. However, we have noticed that there has been a difference in young people, and we feel that we are having to meet needs now that probably prior to the pandemic we weren't aware of, or we weren't needing to pay quite as much attention to. In terms of the academic ability of young people, we do some degree of analysis when young people are starting, and we are aware that there has been a change in the strengths and development needs of young people at the point where they are starting school. And our job is to make sure that no matter what these changes are, that we support young people to achieve their best. I think that there has been, as I say, there's been a change in our experience as teachers since the pandemic, but we're doing our best to address that just now.
And Neil Loudon would like to come in as well.
Yeah, thanks, and thank you, Councillor Wan. And you used a couple of words there, and I think the Chamber's been very supportive and is very supportive of our schools and of the head teachers, but there has to be, I agree with you, the right level of challenge as well around that. And it would be easy for me to sit here and say it was one poor set of data. I think we weren't surprised by some of the data this year, which is why last session we had a focus on what I would describe as quality indicator 2.3 across all of our schools. Now that is simply learning, teaching and assessment, so across all secondaries, but Lorraine's here because in particular we targeted Montrose because the data was telling us that that's where we needed to focus our resource. Now Mr. Smart, I hope, has provided some reassurance, for example, in English and in other subject areas in terms of presentation, that we are going to make progress in those areas. So in terms of last year's data, while it was not a surprise, we are making very clear progress, but it's a focus on learning, teaching and assessment that you will see across all our secondaries. But speaking to Kelly last week as well, we'll be making that explicit to you this year in our Angus education plan across all our schools, because that's what the data is telling us. So thank you for both the support and the challenge, Councillor Wan.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much everybody for your questions and for Mr Smart to answer all these questions. It was worse than an interview ever was. Thank you very much and all the very best with your programme of improvement. Thank you. We're just going to leave. Mr Smart, you might want to listen to a few comments.
All right, sorry.
Right, Councillor Meakin, then Louise Nicholl.
Thank you, Convener. I would like to thank Mr Smart for coming along today and answering all the questions. I would say to him that he should keep up the good fight in educating our young people. I'm sure that when working through any improvement plan, we'll see results come through and we'll get to a place where we all want to be with our young people. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Meakin.
Thank you, Convener.
It was Councillor Louise Nicholl first.
Oh, sorry,
before you.
I think we can all agree that improvements need to be made as highlighted in the report, but I just want to recognise the positive aspects that were noted. I noticed in the report that the school has a strong, supportive, caring ethos and that staff have created a nurturing environment where pupils with additional support needs feel safe and settled. My hope is that these strengths can provide a foundation to build on for the school whilst they address the challenges that have been raised in the report. I look forward to the updates on the progress.
Councillor Proctor.
Thanks very much, Convener. Mr Smart, not really much more to add than what Councillor Meakin said, but I'm sure you and your team will obviously move forward from this and you will rectify the negatives, and I'm sure and I hope that you will build on the positives. And as my colleague Louise Nicholl has said there, you know, the inclusion of all the pupils at the school has got to be considered, and I am sure and I hope that you will rise to the challenge and be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Convener. I left Montrose Academy 20 years ago this summer, and I enjoyed 6 years of amazing education. It set me up for where I am today. I know there are obviously issues with Montrose Academy, but I know every single person in this chamber will be right behind trying to get back to where Montrose was when I left, because it was an excellent school and full of excellent teachers, and I know that's there. So obviously I wish you all the best, and I look forward to hearing the updates as we go on. Thank you.
And Councillor Brace.
Yes, well, I don't want to tell you how long ago it is since I left Montrose Academy, but yeah, in this report from the inspectors, there's an awful lot of good stuff to be really pleased about, and there are other really important areas where improvement is necessary, and what I've heard today gives me a great deal of confidence that this is being tackled in the appropriate manner and that we will make progress. So thanks to Mr Smart and all the team in our education department and at the Montrose Academy.
Thank you, Councillor Brace. And now I think that's fine, but I would like to say that as I go around all the schools, what Mr Smart said about the pandemic is so very true. Children of primary age and secondary, there's cohorts of these children who missed out on very special times, especially transitions, and teachers are having to find ways and means of dealing with that difficulty. So I think we all appreciate that, hope we all appreciate that. So all the very best again. Bye. Okay, we have recommendations. 1 to 4 are considered, and 5 is request the Acting Director of Education Lifelong Learning, as he said, to submit a copy of the return visit report. Do we agree? Thank you. move on to number 6, outcome of ADI's collaborative improvement visit. And this is Neil Loudon introducing the report.
Thank you, Convener. Indeed, agenda item 6, and you'll hear some repetitive words, asks members to note the summary of the Angus Council collaborative improvement visit that took place in October last year. This visit was supported by the Association of Directors of Education for Scotland, ADES, again, His Majesty's Inspectorate and Education Scotland. The key focus was to support and challenge how effective our planning of learning, teaching and assessment supported our S1 young people and the wider curriculum. The visit used a variety of data sources, including attainment data, self-evaluation summary reports, focus groups with teachers, with young people and with wider leadership teams. And the key findings in the report for me highlight both the existing strengths and our areas for improvement. The report concludes with specific next steps in relation to pupil tracking and our Angus education plan, which we will take forward by June 2025 and will be included retrospectively in next year's plan also. So you'll see an update, but you'll see a carry forward, I suppose, is what I want to reassure members. The team are here to take some questions. I'll try and not talk, but equally happy to answer any questions, Convener. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you for the report. It was really interesting to read. I'm interested in knowing a bit more about how the pupil tracking supports transition from P7 to S1. And I'm also wondering, is that period of transition long enough? If you could maybe talk to us a bit about what's in place and any thoughts about that, would be great. Thanks.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Bell. So yeah, the pupil tracking is really supporting our transition, particularly at this point, because it's taken a lot of work to get this tool up and running in every school, a lot of training and a lot of background work to get all of the children's data into the system. So all of that work is now in place, and I'm actually now working with a group of staff across schools, across primary and secondary, to ensure that we have a consistent way of coding children's progress, so that from early level, so from nursery right through to they leave secondary, we are using a consistent way of tracking progress through all sectors, but also across all of our schools. So should children move school, we would still be able to understand the progress they're making, the level they're working within, and how well they're progressing within that level. So that piece of work is really helping us to track that progress and to support that, again, as Mr. Smart touched on, the moderation of children's achievements and assessments across our schools. In terms of transition work, there's been a lot of great work done this year because we've had this focus on the transition from primary 7 into S1. Our colleagues have been working across their clusters, so primary and secondary colleagues working together to review those transition arrangements, again, which maybe did look different post-pandemic, but we're getting that ambition back into trying to make sure that we're doing everything we can and much more working between primary and secondary sectors. So that will be an ongoing piece of work, but yeah, absolutely. We're already seeing the transition programmes becoming a bit more ambitious, and that's something that we will look to progress into next session. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Can I just come in on the back of that then for one moment? Is that okay, Convener? Sorry. I'm pushing it, and I'm conscious of time. I do want to give Kelly some credit in terms of a number of years ago, this was simply a pie-in-the-sky idea, if you want to call it that. But
I think it was a vision.
A vision, yeah. Apple crumble. But you've got the apples now, and we're just putting the crumble on the top. Ultimately, I'm going to use a phrase that the key thing, and we've used this, it needs to support transition, but it needs to challenge learning. So it's that hand-in-glove element of how we challenge learning in S1 to support the BGE and ultimately the senior phase. But starting at our key transition points, which is, Lorraine touched on, N5, so final year of ELC into primary 1, all the way through primary, and challenging it again, primary 7 into S1, to support both transition but challenge learning, I hope is what your vision was for that. And yeah, we won't see necessarily the fruits of our labour instantly, but we are absolutely committed that we will see it over time. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. And Councillor Brace.
Yes, thanks, Convener. I think this is a really positive report. And again, probably my question's already been answered in large part, but just wondered, how do we ensure impact across all our secondary schools? Thanks.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Braze. So one of the things we've done this year is to, councillor officers have gone round each of the secondary schools and met with a variety of groups of young people to talk about their experience in transitioning from primary 7 into S1 and very much taking their ideas on board for how we can further improve that. So I think that's something we'll continue to do. So in terms of evaluating, are we making a difference to their experiences? We'll continue to engage with the people who are most important, and that being the young people as they move through their learning journey. So that has been really positive and something that we'll certainly want to continue. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so just as a supplementary, when it comes to schools, it's not a one size fits all and we're sticking to it. It'll be tailored as required. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and again, that's where it comes back to that close cluster working. So each secondary school working with their primary colleagues to make sure that they're building on the good work that's already been in place and doing it in the ways that are most appropriate for their particular context.
Thank you.
Okay. Any comments? Was that comments? No, that was a question, Councillor Braze. Okay. Thank you. I think we just go with recommendation is just to note this. So you note. Thank you. Well, I'm going to speak to this one as well. It's charging for additional hours of early learning and childcare. Sheena Locke is in attendance as well for questions if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Last one I do promise. Agenda item 7 seeks members' approval to provide some further flexibility in the provision of early learning and childcare in our local authority settings by allowing parents and carers the option to pay for additional provision where operationally feasible at no extra cost to the Council. It also requests approval to delegate authority to the Director of Education and Lifelong Learning in consultation with the Director of Finance to set the rate for additional provision in line with the local market rates and our sustainable rate. In May 2024, members gave approval to trial the option of offering parents one additional session of ELC at Carnoustie and Forfar. This has been used by 6 families to date, generating income of £2,500, but again, income at no additional cost to the Council. In October 2024, we surveyed the parents from both settings again to find out why the uptake had not been greater. And 78% of the 54 parents and carers from Forfar and 79% of the 37 parents and carers from Carnoustie participated in the survey and answered some questions about the potential extension of the service. But the survey also indicated that 97% actually of families agreed that the cost was fair at £30 for a 5-hour session, but they indicated that they would like to purchase more sessions. And in addition, parents of children attending in term time between 9 AM and 3 PM indicated that they would like an option to pay for additional individual hours to give what I would describe as wraparound care, with 19% requesting hours before the session, so 8 o'clock, and 40% requesting hours after the session, say to 4 o'clock. Again, all additional hours would be costed at £6.50, which is directly in line with our sustainable rate that we pay to providers, so in line with the paper at no cost to the Council. Sorry, I'm covering off quite a lot here. The provision of additional hours is not a requirement that we would we would hope to offer these initially in 3 of our standalone settings again, so Carnoustie, Forfar and our new Money Feith ELC. However, should we require further permission in other areas in the future, we could look at Andover, Northmuir, South Esk and Wardykes, and this could be accommodated using the same principles as our standalone ELCs. Having tested this model through the trial, we're confident that we have worked out all of the administrative demands, well, Sheena's worked them out, to support the changes. In relation to our partner providers, we strongly value the relationship and we wanted to make sure that our impact on them was extremely minimal. So the settings have been chosen, have been adapted and reviewed to meet demand within the local community for local authority provision. Our contract with the providers is to make service available should parents choose to access it there. So happy to take any questions, Convener.
Okay. Logistical nightmare, I would say, but are there any questions? Yeah, Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, can fully see the benefits to this, but I just wondered if you could kind of explain or provide assurances around what will be done to ensure that it doesn't create, I guess, inequalities within kind of families, community settings, just in terms of, you know, there might be some parent carers who are not able to afford to purchase additional hours, and yet actually it might be the right thing or the best thing for their child or children. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your question, Councillor Speed. Obviously, you're aware that the funded childcare is available for 1,140 hours, and that's doubled to what children have already been able to receive. And so that's our core and key provision for high quality ELC elsewhere. If parents are opting into extra and paying for that, they're looking for that childcare to cover work. So although the children will receive extra benefit in that they are there for longer, it is always planned for per day to meet the individual children's needs. And so the way that we plan for ELC is to meet every single individual child's needs. So children will have access to the care and support that they need to maximise their learning and development during their time in ELC. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a follow-up, if I may.
Okay.
Thank you. Just in terms of some of my constituents, some of my families in Arbroath, can you just kind of provide an update in terms of their ability to access those additional hours? Because I note within the report that Wardykes would be the identified school, so there might be many families who would benefit within that area. So can you just perhaps say where things are at there?
So within Arbroath, the reason that we're not starting off with additional hours there at the moment within our local authority provision is because parents can access that 1,140 hour provision within lots of private carers and lots of voluntary. The choice and the richness of opportunity for children in Arbroath is vast at the moment. Wardykes would be the place because that is the opportunity for. There is already the staffing in place to support that delivery model, and that's the only reason that it's in Wardykes at the moment. Thanks.
Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Convener. My question is in relation to the EIA and the Fairer Scotland duty. In the EIA, when it mentions Fairer Scotland duty, it just says not applicable. I'm wondering if maybe in future it would be possible to put an explanation of why it's not applicable. Thank you.
Who's going to answer that?
Certainly take that feedback from Councillor Meehan, yeah.
Okay. And Councillor Doran?
Thank you. I am so excited that this is now being offered. I'm really, really pleased to see this. I think unless you're in the childcare situation, it's difficult to understand the complexities of the system and what's on offer. And if anything, it'd be really great to see it rolled out into more areas. I know I'm going to get the question around the Monteith and Sidlow ward, where there's a lot of demand for childcare around there. And in part, I think the question has just been answered a little bit already. So I was going to ask, in terms of consideration of looking at other areas where this might be rolled out, is it based only on the capacity of the local authority staff and location to deliver additional service, or is it based on what's available in terms of private childcare provision in that area as well? Because I appreciate it's also a balance to make sure that overall the sector doesn't become unbalanced as well. So yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more about that, please.
Thanks so much, Councillor Dornan. As you're aware, we work really closely with our partner providers and have done over so many years. And one of the things that we did when we set up the whole 1140 hours in Angus was that we, unlike many other local authorities, took the opportunity to invest in local business and in our private providers to ensure that, unlike in other areas in Scotland, they weren't marginalised because of vast local authority provision. So what we do is each year we assess what is the provision within the local authority, what is the capacity within our providers, and just as you said, we balance that up. We consult with parents, we consult with the settings, we look at the needs, and we do that on an ongoing basis year after year.
Thank you very much, Nina. Are there any comments? Oh. Councillor Melville, Clark, then Shepherd.
Thank you, Convener. Giving families this option to purchase more hours over and above the 1143 in early years settings is a very, very welcome suggestion. We know from the consultation that there are families who want and need that flexibility in terms of those hours. And we've heard it from a couple of people already that good quality childcare is one of the best things that we can do for families, particularly when it's adaptable, and it's also good for the economy as well. So this will make the working week a little bit easier for some families, I hope, and that can only be a good thing. So thanks very much.
Councillor Clark.
Well, I'm going to just have a wee bit of history for a minute. I'm one of these babies that went into Cotton Road Nursery in Dundee at 6 weeks old, while my mother had to work 8 to 6 in the mills because she was a single parent. Now, these days that was quite common, really. There was lots of workplace nurseries. We don't have that now. What we've got now is, and I had a wonderful experience. Met my best pal, still there. So that was a wonderful experience. It was a great thing to have. It was right across Scotland, probably across Britain. Times went on, things changed, and we're always having bairns at the forefront in their education, their learning experience. I'm not going to repeat what Councillor Melville eloquently said. I will just say that it's a welcome story for me. We can't go back. We need to learn, and we did learn, so a welcome story, and all the very best.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks very much. You know, I'm happy about supporting these proposals today. And just that, you know, from the reading the report as well, there's that that 40% of them are wanting to take hours like after the 9 to 3 session. So it's that I'm really proud that as a local authority on this one that we're you know, we're openly admitting that a lot of the settings they don't fit in perfectly with a working day, and we've had an opportunity in some of the settings to go in childs, they might have less transitions in a day. They're maybe not jumping in a taxi, or they're not going to Grands for an hour. And on some of the other stuff we've spoken about earlier at committee today, like the effects of COVID and things, I think this is really one that is giving some children a little bit more stability, and that can only be a good thing, because the working day, I think the working day is getting longer from what I see out there. And people are having to work longer hours with the cost of living crisis as well going on. So anything we can do to help families, and this is something that isn't statutory and we've chosen to do, you know, just anyone that's been involved in the work of this thing, it's excellent, and really helping parents, because there is no traditional 9 to 5. Every family's got a unique story, and a report like this certainly helps with that. So thanks very much.
Councillor Proctor.
Thank you very much, Convener. Kind of like Councillor Spade, I have concerns about equality and inequality of everybody being able to afford this, but I do think it's a positive step forward. I think it's a good way, and I do feel that, you know, £6.50 an hour, you'll not get better than that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And that looks like the end of the comments. So the recommendations are 2 approves. Are you happy about that? Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you all.
We're going on to Tayside Bairnshouse Pathfinder Programme, and Kirsty Lee is going to introduce the report. Lisa McMahon is over here. She is in attendance to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your patience and the change over there. So members have had previous updates on the Angus work in support of the Tayside Bairnshouse Pathfinder project. We are pleased that the work that has taken place over the last 18 months will continue with funding that has been made available over the next 2 years, and a Tayside bid is currently submitted and is being reviewed. The ambition in Angus is to have a fully functioning, trauma-informed Bairnshouse located at Bellevue House that has both excellent in-house facilities and the ability to be flexible and interview children when it suits them best. The Bairnshouse building has been updated considerably, and work will continue over coming months to complete the building improvements and update the equipment. But in addition to the physical work, additional supports have been made available to children and families who need a child protection response, with Includum providing wraparound and responsive support before, during and after an investigation. The bid will support this really important work to continue. Medical facilities continue to be available and accessible in Dundee, with some improvement work currently taking place around access to those facilities and speech and language support. Members may wish to receive a further update as we move into the final year of the pilot for Bairnshouse next March. And the Angus work is being ably led by Lisa McMahon, our Investigations Manager, who's available today if there are any specific questions that members have on the Bairnshouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Do we have any questions? Councillor Melville first. Bell.
Thank you, Convener. Part of it is about this bid for full year funding. Obviously, the report talks about the 700,000 annual funding. In terms of some of the capital works that are in the pipeline, what kind of funding are we requiring there in terms of the scale of that?
So my understanding is that most of the capital work has been funded from the previous year's bid, so we are concluding that. The bid that's in at the moment on a Tayside basis is to look at a number of things, including the speech and language support, which we think is critical, so that will be applicable across Tayside. The Includum support, that we're just 6 months into having commissioned that support service. We were obviously concerned that without any additional funding we couldn't continue with that. So the bid will address the Includum needs as well. There are some other bits around improvements for outside space and camera recording equipment in some of the other areas in Tayside. I think we are fairly content that our equipment is sufficient for use. So, I mean, it sounds like a lot of money and funding, but across the whole of Tayside, where we're looking at continuing and concluding the capital investments, but the supports and services, then that money very quickly disappears. We've also bid to the top end of what's available from Scottish Government, so the bid is right up there at the top, so we can certainly make use of that funding.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Thanks, Kirsty. I mean, obviously, really supportive of all this work and have been from the outset. It's a governance question and around how all this gets reported. There's huge scope for it to be incredibly clunky and very onerous in terms of capacity. So I'm just trying to think of ways that we can slim that down, but that everybody gets to see what they need to see. So what is the reporting route for the overarching Bairnshouse, but also the Angus element of that? Thanks.
So I'll maybe start at the top, and then Lisa might want to talk about the kind of local governance bit. So this is being delivered as part of our Tayside plan, so our Tayside Regional Improvement Collaborative. So this work is part of what was previously known as our Priority Group 5 for child protection. So the governance for this comes through the TRIC. So we are content. I think the last year we've worked really hard actually with police and NHS colleagues to really work out what the governance is for that. So there is a steering group and there is a decision board, and it reports in through the Tayside Collaborative, which we know in Angus reports into Integrated Children's Services. I'm not making it sound any less clunky, but that is the governance there. This crosses so many things, because you'll hear about it in terms of the next item, in terms of child protection, because this is a big initiative in terms of improving our response to child protection too. The role of this committee, I think you have been particularly interested in how we bring the Tayside Bairnshouse to Angus, you noted concerns previously that funding that was short term wouldn't allow us to see this project through. I think you can have a bit more assurance today that we'll be part of this pilot for the next 2 years, and we will see this through to the conclusion of the Pathfinder. In terms of how decisions are made about the spend and the bids, I think, Lisa, you could probably give a bit more detail on that.
Thanks for that, Kirsty. Yeah, so on a more local level, I mean, obviously the Tayside Pathfinder has 3 local authorities. We've got health, we've got police involved. So there's a strategic group that's managing the strategic vision and etc. But on a more local level, each local authority area has their own implementation group that at the moment we're meeting 8 weekly, and that is made up of third sector, include social work, health, police, all the agencies that are involved, you know, in the Bairnshoes initiative. So at the moment, what we're doing is there's 11 Bairnshoes standards that we're really looking to meet. So we're creating a work plan, a multi-agency work plan around that to make sure that our Bairnshoes is sticks to the standards, delivers the best experience for children and families who are in the child protection system.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor Speed.
Thank you. I just wondered if you could kind of provide a very quick update just in terms of how that refurbishment is going at Bellevue House. And, you know, what needs, you know, has additional needs been taken into consideration in terms of accessibility, the physical environment, sensory needs, I guess all that would be needed to meet the needs of some of our most complex situations. Thanks.
I think Lisa would like to come in on that.
Yeah, so we consulted with young people, and just to kind of put it in perspective, we got the money last January for the first phase, and we were looking to spend it by the end of March. You know, that was at the end of the financial year, so it was a really kind of quick turnaround of our expectation. We consulted with our interior designers to make sure that the space and the colours we were using, you know, were not only aesthetic but also for, you know, for people who had difficulty with, you know, visually difficulties, that they were able to, you know, travel around and not be at risk. The space we've used was our old interview suite anyway, so we already had considered, you know, accessibility issues around that. There's a lift within it, there's a separate entrance within it. So that's kind of just been, we've built on that with our new space that we've developed. In relation to our work, phase 1 was we had a big old room and we were able to make that, and I hope to invite you all soon to see it, to see the change of it. But we were able to make this into using the Bairnshoes standards, you know, and who's been the key word. It's not necessarily it's an environment that's like a family centre or whatever, you know, it has to be relaxing and to feel comfortable for and safe for children and their families. So we used the money mainly for that area, and we've totally reconfigured the room to make it a self-contained, safe space where children and families can come in their own entrance, be left, have support if they need it, can make a snack, can watch TV, because what we have is our new SCIM model is a much longer process for and more child-centred process for interviewing children. So obviously often they have siblings and family members, you know, waiting for that to happen. So there's also more breaks within it that children come in that they could receive support, a bit of distraction. We have a garden area. Our next stage, we're looking at a direct door access from the actual Bairnshoes into the garden area. And again, that's safe, it's private. You know, so we're just trying to, these are all listed within the standards as well. So we're just trying to make sure that it's the best environment so that we can have a much more trauma-informed approach to interviewing children, which is obviously a very difficult experience for them.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you. Are there any comments? No. Okay, thank you very much. Recommendations are have due regard to the content of the report and have due regard to the confirmation of Scottish Government funding, which is very good news. Do we agree? Thank you. Sorry. Angus Child Protection Committee Annual Report, April 23 to March 24, quite a long time ago. Ewan West, the Independent Chair, is here today to introduce the report, and Rebecca McNeill is also in attendance for questions if necessary. Okay, Ewan.
Thank you, Convener. Good afternoon, everyone. My pleasure to present the Child Protection Annual Report, which covered the period April 23 to March 24. I think it's a positive report, and I would like to thank all those who work in child protection across Angus for their continued professionalism in dealing with situations which, as Lisa's just referred to there, are often quite upsetting for children, young people, their families, often complex cases. And this work is really quite tough at times, but I think across Angus here, our staff, and I think hopefully the report shows this, that the quality of work in response to these situations is very good and supports families through difficult times in their lives, as well as preventing the escalation of child protection situations. So just some general comments to start with around how I think we are. The report shows we're quite well set here in Angus to address the challenges that are often presented. I'm just going to pick out some key points because I'm sure members have gone through the report, but some key points from me, a couple around statistics. It's very encouraging, I think, that, as it says in the report, that 89% of the children on the Child Protection Register are only on the register for less than 1 year. I would suggest that the intervention work that had to be instigated to deal with those particular cases has been quite effective, and so much so that the deregistration figures are encouragingly high. I would be disappointed if there was a significant percentage of those who went onto the register, children who were on it for more than 1 year, and that would indicate to me that our interventions are not as effective as they might be. So I think that's a really encouraging statistic. One statistic that's not particularly encouraging is the fact that domestic abuse is a significant risk factor affecting children in Angus, and at least one of the risk factors in around 75% of the registrations. That's very concerning, and it really highlights the serious impact that domestic abuse in all its forms has upon children. That's something that we are currently, locally and nationally, having to really have a close look at. How can we actually tackle this rise and impact of domestic abuse and its subsequent impact on children? And this report highlights that impact. I'm not wanting to get away from this report, but perhaps just to update members that very recently I've had meetings with the Equalities Minister and the First Minister as to how we can actually, at a national level, set about setting out a clear strategy in relation to domestic abuse, because we've got to get a prevention strategy which is going to feed down to prevent some of these children who are currently being impacted by domestic abuse. So it's a challenge going forward. It's a statistic in that report that I don't think any of us would want to see repeated, but it's a fact, and it's where we are just now. Following on from that, I think there's, I'd like to highlight 2 or 3 positive areas. It's really important that child protection staff are properly skilled in their work and how they can tackle the issues that are presented and Lisa mentioned in a properly trauma-informed way. And I think that our Workforce and Learning subgroup have done a great job over this period and since to make sure that the training and support that's provided to our staff is sufficiently strong and relevant to make sure our staff are highly skilled and trained in dealing with child protection matters. I've been very impressed by the breadth of training opportunities that are offered to staff and also the take-up from staff of these opportunities. I think that's very encouraging. We've just heard about the Bairns House and the SCIM model, and these are positive developments in Angus. And a question about governance was asked a short time ago, and I think it was yourself, Councillor Bell. The Child Protection Committee, or now PPASC, gets a regular report on the progress of both of those and allows us a chance to scrutinise what's going on. And I have to say, to this point, the committee has been very satisfied with progress. So there's just another part of governance around that. There's other key aspects to the report around prevention. For example, the early screening process, the PRAM process, advocacy, which is very important, and self-evaluation. Some of these points are set out in the report, and it's very important to make sure that at the earliest possible point we prevent any escalation of harm or risk to children, hence the importance of the ESG and other processes. It's also important that when situations do arrive, families are fully supported by staff and also by independent advocacy. And here in Angus, we've got excellent support services available to families and children. And equally, and talking about scrutiny and governance, it's equally important that we have a proper self-evaluation internal process here in Angus to make sure that we regularly review cases and audit cases to make sure that if there is any learning, and there often is, that we take that forward to make sure that we can continue to improve our delivery of child protection in Angus. I'll come back to external scrutiny just in a second. Going forward, there are, we have a number of challenges, and key amongst those, and this is referred to in the report, is the continued and emerging risk of online abuse and online activity in all its forms. And what's relevant today and current today, I'm afraid, will be overtaken by something else tomorrow. And it's so difficult to keep up with the emerging risks. And that's a big challenge for us going forward. And in fact, today, just before I came here, I saw a report published by the National Crime Agency, which is showing that we have groups of teenagers who are setting up forums to intimidate, bully and abuse their peers, and often as young as 10, 11 years of age. And this is an emerging threat that we probably knew about. The National Crime Agency have confirmed it today, and the risk they set out is, is quite concerning. And Angus is not immune to that position. And so that is a big challenge for us going forward. It's a big challenge for the committee to keep up with what the trends are and how we can prevent that, and how we can prevent children being exposed to those risks. So that is indeed probably the key challenge for us going forward. Finally, I just want to say the report refers to the change away from the Child Protection Committee as was to the Protecting People Angus Strategic Committee, PPASC, which I've talked about at this committee previously, which came into being on the 1st of April. And I have to say, and we're away to undertake an internal review of how that's happened, and sorry, not how it's happened, how it's impacted upon our business. But I have to say that it's enabled much greater collaboration across child protection with adult protection and violence against women and girls. It's reduced the duplication of our work, and it's definitely going to make sure that we will tackle the challenges that are ahead of us much more much better and more collaboratively. And for example, that online issue that I've just referred to. So I think we've strengthened our approach. All the agencies have bought into it, and I'm encouraged by the level of input, dialogue, and also scrutiny into our work now that we've moved into this new arrangement. So the first PPAS report, following on from this report, will be published this September and reported to this committee. But prior to that, the Care Inspector report on children at risk of harm will also be published, which is referred to in this report. I'm looking forward to delivering that to members. So I hope that gives you some confidence about what the outcome will be, which we will know about very shortly. I think just to finish, hopefully the report will reassure members that Angus continues to have a very positive approach to dealing with child protection issues, and that children and young people are being kept safe, and that those who require the support of professionals get that support and intervention as quickly as they possibly can, and that those interventions are delivered in a very professional but trauma-informed manner. And as chair of the committee, I'll just finish on the point I started with. We can't get to this position where we are without the dedication of our staff, and that's, you know, our statutory agency staff as well as third sector and all the volunteers who work with us. It truly is a team effort here in Angus. I see it regularly from all the discussions that I have with different professionals and those impacted upon by child protection. It really is, I would suggest to members, a very positive position. And I look forward to making sure that we continue at that level, if not improve going forward over the next 12 months and beyond. I'll pass back to yourself, Convener.
Thank you, Ewan, for that very interesting report. We've got Councillor Bell, Councillor Speed.
Thank you, and it's nice to be in the same room with you, Ewan, rather than one of us being on screen. So really appreciate the presentation and summary that you've given us today. And I'm particularly glad that you picked out the domestic abuse, violence against women agenda and the online issue. It links into the conversation that we had with Mr. Smart earlier on today, and I guess how precarious the position is around some young people and their vulnerabilities. So I kind of wanted to focus a wee bit on the involving dads section, which is really interesting, and I think it has potential to deliver quite a lot. I just wondered if you could maybe give us a bit more on the kind of things that are being done in subgroups and what sort of time frame we're looking at and seeing some qualitative results on that. I think that would be really helpful because it links in with Safe Together as well. But also, what more do we need to do with the young men in order to prevent them getting to that stage? Thank you.
I'll just start on an answer and then Rebecca can give a bit more detail as well. I think you're absolutely right. We need to involve dads as much as possible. It's a whole family approach that we're trying to continuously promote here in Angus, and dads are also an integral part of that. Leaving them out is not in the best interest of anybody, I don't believe. So yeah, it's not come about by chance that we're taking this approach. I think it's an absolute necessity. I'll come back to your second point in a second, but I'll pass over to Rebecca about the dad's situation.
Yep, so you might be aware that the Involving Dads work came from the research undertaken in Tayside regarding non-accidental injuries to babies. So that's why it sits under the Protecting People agenda. So the work is slow because it's a whole culture shift in how we engage with families, and you'll know yourselves that we usually, many agencies default to mum, and it needs to be a gradual process. How do we change our systems to align our systems with whole family approaches. So the work that's been undertaken is to systematically look at each system, and the subgroups that have sat underneath the Involving Dads have gone into single agencies to look at what they can do themselves, and they're bringing that back to the overall group. So there's been some progress in respect of within social work, ensuring that parental rights and responsibilities are clearly noted and that mum isn't contacted on a duty referral, for example, as the default position, that we're really challenging ourselves to ensure that we're contacting dads as well, especially when dads have been the perpetrator of some of the concerns. So we're holding dads equally accountable for parenting their children. Within education, there's been adjustments to CMIS to ensure that dads are clearly recorded and are notified of issues, and equally within health, for the first time they've been able to actually ensure that there's a dad's record, for example, within maternity records, so it's not just mum that's been used as the default position. So, I mean, these are little changes, but they're also substantial in terms of really challenging our systems that have always defaulted to mum. But again, it is that bit about, it's not just about our agencies, it's a culture shift within society that we need to be approaching as well. So slow, but good positive progress, and something that we've got a really strong and keen eye on.
Yeah, and to pick up on your second point about, you know, the impact on young people and what we can do about it, it's a massive area for us going forward. But it's a necessary area that we need to focus on, because we need to try and prevent it actually happening. At committee, I mean, Kelly's sitting there. Kelly sits on committee, and we've had very recently some great dialogue with Kelly, and she's informing us what schools across Angus are doing in terms of interacting with the kids and the preventative messages that are being put across there. We need to continue working at that, because, as I said earlier, things are changing on a day-to-day basis. Keeping up with technology it's a bit of a struggle. And one day we get a briefing maybe from RASAC or Women's Aid about, never heard of that before, how's that working? And the young people are being exposed to that. So we need to keep working as a committee to get those messages across relentlessly, and take the children and young people with us, but also, as it was mentioned earlier on, parents and carers, who will probably be, in many cases, and I don't mean this in a bad way, quite ignorant to what's actually out there and what kids are being exposed to. So I don't think there's an easy answer to that one, Councillor. I think we all have to collectively promote the preventative message, but the committee needs to take a lead on that, and that's why I was saying there earlier that it's a big challenge for us going forward.
Thank you. Ewan. Kelly would like to come in on that.
Yeah, thanks, Ewan. And Councillor Bell, you'll be aware that for the first time this year, Equally Safe included commitments from education from my ADES colleagues. And one of them is actually about ensuring that our young people's learning about relationships, sexual health and parenthood includes learning about keeping safe online. But if I think back to 10 or 15 years ago, where we rolled out a programme of COP training, people will remember the Think You Know work, that was very much based upon making our young people aware of the bad adults out there and keeping themselves safe online. And like Ewan has just mentioned, our young people are now becoming the people who are helping other young people get involved online in a way that's very negative. They're actually setting up these chats themselves. So there is a job of work for us to do in education. And you heard the head teacher from Montrose earlier speak about keeping the curriculum relevant. It's really difficult to keep up to date with this and have the experts in our classrooms as teachers helping our children with the emerging technology and all of these things and how they're set up and how not to get involved. But we are on that. Please be assured that we're on it. The other really important bit of the relationship, sexual health and parenthood learning is about making sure that all of our young people understand what consent is, what a safe and healthy relationship is, and what not to accept in the world. And part of that is about reporting in school. So we spoke about bullying earlier. You'll know that the government gave out guidance on gender-based violence, and reporting and recording that in CMIS is one of the things that we are encouraging schools to do. And that's about even the comments that boys and girls, let's be honest, would make in classrooms that are inappropriate. We've got a cultural shift to do with our staff, I'll be really honest. so that our staff don't just accept that or think it's banter or it's okay, because that perpetuates that voice, and that voice is not okay. So there is a big piece of work, but I would like to say that, just like Ewan's already alluded to, the fact that Angus is quite a small local authority helps us in this arena, because I sit on the group that Ewan chairs, so does Rebecca, so does Beth from my team about the data. We work really closely with the third sector, so Rape Crisis Scotland, Women's Aid, they're coming into our schools and delivering part of that work. So it is a huge job of work, but just be assured that we're on it. Thank you.
Convener, could I just maybe add one point to that? Kelly just said that, Councillor. Getting the expertise is really important so we can tackle this, and that's now been identified at a national level. The chairs group that I sit nationally has very recently been speaking about that, because if we don't get the right people in to address the situation, we're never going to address it properly. So at a national level as chairs, we are looking closely now to see how we can tap in quickly to getting the right support that we can provide locally to help us tackle this issue. So it's getting addressed nationally and hopefully locally, and hopefully that reassures you that we are on it. It's just a bit, it's a really difficult situation.
Sorry, Convener. Thank you. I do have confidence, because this is an issue that comes up all the time, and we've raised it before. I think that documentary that was aired has highlighted it more to parents who are probably in shock that this is the sort of thing that is happening. And I guess the next bit then would be, well, how do we support parents? So, you know, some of the conversation with Mr. Smart earlier, you know, was really helpful in that, and I'm sure it will roll out across the county. But I'm absolutely convinced parents and the wider family have just no idea of the challenges that we're facing, or at least to that extent. So thank you.
So again, if we can think back about 15 years ago, I was a CEOP ambassador for the council, and I used to go around schools, including Montrose Academy actually at evenings, and speak to parent groups about how to keep your children safe online. And that was again about the people who were pretending to be children to befriend and groom their children. What I see happening in the very near future for us is that happening again, but the sessions will be about this is how your own children might be becoming involved in activity online that A, is illegal, and if it's not illegal, it's incredibly harmful to other young people.
Right, thank you. Councillor Speed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr West. Continuing on with the emerging issues and risks that have been highlighted today, and given NHS Tayside's sharp and brutal decision to shut the door on children and families living with a neurodevelopment condition or unknown diagnosis, how much of a challenge will this place on the system, and what provisions and approaches are being discussed within child protection, as this will definitely send many children and families into deeper crisis?
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to take that as the Chief Social Work Officer. So those very sort of contemporary discussions and risks that are emerging from the information about CAMS and the neurodevelopmental kind of pathway are being discussed on a Tayside basis. So it's coming more through our integrated children's services partnership. We've not yet even asked the question about what are the real impacts and how might they be felt in the child protection system. There is no doubt we share your concerns about, you know, children who have presenting needs that are either recently been referred for a neurodevelopmental assessment or who are currently on the waiting list. So there's been a lot of press around that. We are engaging with our NHS partners to look at what the kind of wider partnership response needs to be for families. I appreciate that families who are living through this at the moment are concerned, and we've seen some of that in the press. I know some of our schools are maybe experiencing questions from families about what next for us. There's not really much more I think we can say at the moment, apart from we are engaging with colleagues in NHS. Kelly has just recently picked up the lead for a piece of work around TRIC, and we've been having kind of several meetings. So not much else I can say at the moment, but to say we share concerns and that we need to be much more responsive to families about what they can do now. to access supports and services for their children, because I appreciate lots of families are feeling disappointed. It is not yet strayed into the business of our Child Protection Committee, and I think it's right and proper that it stays in and around GIRFEC, early help and support. So I am sure we will be bringing some reports through integrated children's services with our partners when we can.
Thank you.
Just to add from myself, Councillor, if that's okay, convener, for that question. Kirsty's right, it's not quite got to our committee yet, but as an independent chair, I was very concerned when I read about this last week, and slightly further down the line, I'll be looking for some reassurance that the needs of those children who require support is going to be there, and what key communication messages are going to be delivered to reassure families. Now, I think I need to wait till the ladies there have those discussions, but it's on my agenda, it's on my radar, and as an independent chair, I will be asking some questions as we go forward as part of some of those committees that Kirsty's just mentioned.
Convener, could I make a comment on that, please? Just briefly, as a non-exec director of NHS Tayside, I've also raised concerns around how that came about. I just wanted to give you that assurance. And there is some background discussion going on around that.
That's good to know. Very quickly.
It's an important subject, convener. Yeah, thank you very much for the responses. You say that it's not something that's, I guess, touched, this area of work yet, but I would imagine that there perhaps will be some children and families who are under the care and support of child protection who perhaps already do have a neurodevelopment disorder, whether diagnosed or not. And so I would imagine these children and families are already at risk, perhaps because they're not receiving the right support at the right time. So I definitely would appreciate that, yeah, this is an area of work that is considered within your remit, and anything that you can do, I kind of urge you, given the pressures on our families within Angus at this kind of really worrying time. Thank you.
Right. I do think that you've heard from everybody that it's on their radar and they are really going to be looking at it because... Sorry?
Can I just come in? Sorry, is that okay? Sorry. I just want to assure you, so Kirsty had said, I'm the chair of the Tayside Regional Collaborative at the moment. And what I could say is that yesterday there was a conversation with Nikki Connor from NHS Tayside, and NHS Tayside have been asked to convene an urgent meeting, a pan-Tayside meeting. So we have, Audrey Osborne is joining that from Our World, representatives from Dundee and Perth, just to try and understand the situation better. But like Kirsty alluded to look at our response locally for families in need. So not just the response they get in school, because obviously needs are met in school, but the wider response, if that makes you feel any better. Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, convener. My question's fairly simple, I hope, and I hope I haven't missed anything in the links because I haven't gone into all of them. A note from the report that what we usually see in a report is a comparison year on year. I don't see it. Usually we get a bar chart or something along those lines, so we can quite simply, because we read an awful lot, we can quite simply say, well, I can see the comparison year on year, but it doesn't appear to be in the report.
Certainly, we decided to write the report differently this time and write it to the strategic plan, which is why you don't see that. However, there's no reason why I can't get that to you if you would find it useful. So we could pull that together and get that to you after. That would be good.
Thank you.
Councillor Louise Nicholl.
Thanks, convener. Actually, my question's already been addressed from someone else earlier on. It was just about the challenges of safeguarding children online that's been covered.
Councillor Proctor.
Thank you, convener. As a father and a grandfather, I'm glad my children are grown up, and one of my grandchildren, he's actually a teacher, but the younger one's still at school. So this is quite concerning, and hearing everything what's been brought out here to me. So what sort of percentage are we talking about? Kind of going on for George Megan's question. What sort of percentage are we talking about? The overall population of children and that, who are vulnerable, or who could be sort of, you know, got at, if you want to, for a word of a better one.
I can't give you that answer off the top of my head, so I think I'd need to go and get the data. We do have the data sets there, and again, just as what's been requested, we can pull that together and get that to you. Okay.
Lovely, thanks, Rebecca. Are there any comments? Oh, Councillor Doran.
Thank you very much. Firstly, thanks for raising the conversation about the impact of CALMS. I think it's a really important conversation to have. I wanted to recognise some of the important work that the community policing team have been doing recently, particularly I've seen it in the Monifee and Tidlow ward in schools around dangers of online activity with parents, and I know it's been really well received. And I just wanted to recognise as well how important that work about tackling those stereotypes of mums, dads, who does what role within families, and that it's a really, really massive cultural shift. So it will take time, but I'm really, really pleased to hear that that work is ongoing and making some progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doran. Any more comments? No. Well, we have the recommendations. There's 4 recommendations: considers and notes, recognises and notes the timeline for upcoming reports to committee. Thank you. Do you agree? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can you stop the live stream, please?